Alright, I need to pick up this video where the other one left off. Okay, so I need to give you a more thorough definition or explanation of what a promoter does so that you can understand the difference between the type of business that a promoter puts together and the type of business that an entrepreneur generally puts together. Okay, so basically the process is somewhat different from the entrepreneurial process, and so whereas the entrepreneur will generally write a business plan and try to execute everything themselves, okay, what the promoter will do is approach this as if it was a corporate project, okay? And so what they do is they assemble their corporate team. They recruit a president, because usually the promoter is not really qualified to be a CEO. He's not a CEO type. He has a totally different temperament, okay? Because a promoter is generally a more creative type, whereas someone who is a successful entrepreneur is generally a more action-oriented figure. So he will find someone to be the CEO, although a lot of times the promoter will retain the position of chairman of the board so that he can watch over the business as it grows, but usually the promoter knows better than to fool around with the day-to-day affairs of the business. Maybe he will work on the creative side of the business, coming up with new products, new services, etc., and act as a stabilizing force in the business. And so therefore the promoter will generally have highly evolved people skills and negotiation skills and that type of thing. So he will go on a corporate search, and ideally the first one to find is the one who is going to be the CEO. Now the CEO designate ideally should already have a pretty good job, but at like a mid-sized company, and generally the CEO needs to be of an age where he's kind of stuck where he is. He or she is kind of stuck where they're at. You know, they're at a middle-of-the-road type company. They're either the CEO or the COO or a major vice president like that, but they have all the skills that a CEO would need. But, you know, they're probably about in their late 40s or 50s. And so because of age and other situations, they're lucky to keep the job they have. And, you know, that's pretty much. Now, some of these folks get very frustrated in that position because they've realized the height of their career, and it is a disappointment for them. So what they sometimes will do is agree to go with a startup company, okay, like the promoters putting together. And what they do is they will lend their resume to the company, and they will also agree to be the CEO once the company is funded. Okay, so now that they have the CEO, then the promoter works with the CEO designate to begin to recruit the rest of the corporate officers. And so, of course, they need a treasurer and you know, other vice presidents, etc. And the treasurer needs to be very good at accounting and put together the pro formas that are going to be necessary. But all the resumes of all the officers, if it's a creative company, they got to have a creative director, etc. And all the resumes need to fit together to form a tight and a good package, and then they need to write a good business plan. And then based on the business plan, they start raising money. And they will look to private investors or maybe a Kickstarter type thing, etc., and put the business out for the raising of the initial seed capital. Then once they have the initial seed capital, then the business starts operation, and the executive staff comes on board and begins to start running the company. And they still may not have opened the doors yet, but the company's at least running, and they're looking for more investors. And then you just keep on going through the various steps that you would go. And of course, if you're lucky, you will have created a business that will be good enough to have a public offering, an IPO, and there aren't too many IPOs done. But if you can get your company to the stage where you do an IPO, then that makes everyone instantly very wealthy. Okay, that makes everybody instantly very wealthy. At the same time, you built a worthwhile business that is providing a worthwhile service to its community. And it should run very well, until they have to hire, new administrators, etc. And so that basically is the summary of how this goes. And that business career path is somewhat different than the entrepreneurial business career path. Now, I've got several businesses on the back burner right now, several businesses that are real good ideas, and one of which is an outsourcing business, an offshore outsourcing business. And basically, I have all the material I need to get that business up and running, and I could actually do it myself. The only problem is that business doesn't really hold my interest all that well. And I know from previous experience that, that is a recipe for disaster and frustration later on if I decide to go about and creating that business. It could very rapidly expand and, like before, be the business that ate my life. I didn't have a life. I had a business back then. I didn't have a life. I had a business, and the business basically ruled my life, and I hated the business because it was the wrong business. Now, I don't think the outsourcing business is something that I would come to hate as much, but I still know better than to think that business would be the ideal thing for me. But as a promoter, I could put it together. So if there's any interest out there in putting together the that business, I am very interested in talking to you, because that business actually can plug right in almost perfectly to this other business that I'm doing, which has the potential to revolutionize the music industry. And that's the business I am excited about today. And, as this video is also getting a little bit long, I'm going to break this up some more. And I will now make a third video so that we can get into that. But, that is the real business that I want to do. However, the virtual outsourcing business, because I put a few extra twists in it, like it would be one of the only outsourcing businesses that would accept Bitcoin, for instance. And if I can get a discussion going on Bitcoin, it is a huge market. I've got several businesses, including that one, that are fronting on the Bitcoin space. And Bitcoin is already about 100 times bigger than eGold ever was, or maybe 1,000 times bigger than eGold ever was. I believe the turnover in Bitcoin is about $1 billion a year. And Bitcoin is eventually, or one of its successors, is going to eventually completely transform the financial system. In about 5 to 10 years, the financial system will be completely different than it is today. And we're at a perfect point where, with a few strategically placed businesses, we can be at the forefront and ride that wave. And believe me, talk about making an almost instant millionaire. Well, that's what it will do. But that's another story for another time and another video. Now, the music business does have something to do with Bitcoin, but that's sort of incidental at this point. And the virtual outsourcing business also has a Bitcoin component to it, but that's also sort of a rider. I've done all the research, by the way. I have all the training manuals for the employers. I have all the training manuals for the employees. And the complete business step-by-step procedure on how you go about doing this. So all I need with this business is one person who is really interested in this field, and then we can just hit the go button. And so that business is ready to go, and it really is next in line to be executed while we're getting this other one going, which is a lot more complicated. So if you are interested in the outsourcing business, you can end up owning a big piece of it, and I'll be here to help you. I do web design, I do videos, I do everything. You might not realize it, but I'm actually very good at making videos. But I'm doing these, what I call down and dirty, just to get the ideas going, because if I spend the time in production of professional-looking videos to get these ideas across, it will never get done. Anyway, now we're going to have to continue in the third video.